"I will not let this family sweep Kofi's sin under the mat," she screamed, her wrapper slipping from her shoulder. "He must face the wrath of your gods. Kofi will not escape this." The elders exchanged uncomfortable glances. Some shifted on their wooden stools while others stared at the ground, hoping the weight of Adisa's rage wouldn't fall on them. Adisa, the eldest of them all, said in a voice meant to steady the storm, "Calm yourself. Anger will not solve this matter." "Calm myself?" thIe whirled around to face him, her eyes blazing. "You want me to calm myself after Kofi destroyed my daughter's life? After he ruined Zara and left her carrying his child? Tell me, Adisa, what part of this makes you think I should be calm?" Some of the elders nodded in agreement, others exchanged worried glances. "This is not a matter to be rushed," Iour, another elder, said, his cane tapping the ground for emphasis. "Kofi is still one of us. We must be careful. This is a family matter." thIe let out a bitter laugh that silenced the crowd. "Family matter," she spat. Was it family that made him force himself on Zara? Was it family that made him plant his evil seed in her? The Yoruba people have a cherished tradition of living with extended family members, which improves communal living. It's common for older relatives to teach younger ones a trade or sponsor their education. As Christmas approached, families from the city began returning to the village, bringing excitement and expectations. Some came to pluck flowers, a local phrase meaning to find a bride among the village maidens who were now of marrying age. Others were there to make business connections or seek opportunities. This was how Lanra, Zara's older brother, finally left for the United States. Like many before him, he hoped to build a better future not just for himself, but for his family as well. For others, it was an opportunity to ask a respected relative for help, perhaps a sponsorship for tuition or an apprenticeship in one of the popular cities like Ibadan, Kaduna, Port Harcourt, or even Lagos. thIe, a widow, had been without her husband Bayo for over 10 years. Despite being a woman of great beauty, she had refused to remarry after his passing, determined to raise their 2 children on her own. Life had dealt her an unfair hand, losing her husband so early, but she had persevered, staying strong for the sake of her children. The sun was beginning to dip behind the hills as thIe walked steadily toward the family house. The village was buzzing with preparation for Christmas, and everywhere she looked, people were hurrying to finish their work before the festivities began. It was during this time of the year when family gathered, but she had decided to finally approach Femi, her late husband's brother, with her request. The air was thick with the scent of burning firewood and freshly plucked palm leaves, but thIe hardly noticed. Today was the day she would ask him for a favor that could change her daughter's life. Zara, her only daughter, had just completed high school, and the future ahead of her stretched wide with possibilities. thIe had watched her daughter grow with pride, her ambition evident in everything she did. Zara was smart, driven, and full of dreams. More than anything, she had always wanted to be more than just a village girl. At 17, she was ripe for marriage by the community standards, but thIe wasn't ready to let go just yet. She wasn't ready for her daughter to settle into the life of a wife and mother, not when there were still dreams to chase. As she approached the family house, thIe sighed deeply, her thoughts turning to her late husband Bayo. He had been a man who believed in hard work and community. He had done his best for their family, even though life had been tough. Now, it was up to thIe to ensure that Zara had a future beyond the village. She needed Femi's help. Femi had always been a kind man. He had worked hard to build his business in Ibadan, and though his life had its fair share of struggles, he had managed to make something of himself. His clothing business had grown steadily over the years, and he had even managed to open a small shop in the city. But his success came with a price. He was too busy. Begging for his favor over the phone would be a terrible decision. This Christmas, however, he had returned home for a few weeks, and thIe saw it as the perfect opportunity to ask him for the help her daughter needed. She stepped into the family compound and saw the familiar sight of Femi sitting on the veranda, sipping from a calabash of palm wine. His face lit up as he saw her approaching, and he immediately rose to greet her with a wide smile. "thIe, my sister," he called out in greeting, his voice warm with familiarity. "How is my lovely sister-in-law doing? And how is your twin sister?" He referred to Zara, who looked exactly like thIe, his voice filled with affection. Teo smiled, feeling a wave of comfort wash over her as she walked closer. thIe had always called her his sister, and though they were not blood relatives, their bond was deep. She felt grateful for the kindness he had shown her throughout the years. "I am well, thIe," Teo replied. "It is good to see you again. I've brought you some fresh palm wine from the farm. I thought it would be nice for us to catch up." thIe chuckled, taking the calabash from her hands. "You know the way to my heart, Teo. You've always had a good sense of timing. Come, sit with me. Let's talk." Teo sat beside him, the familiar scent of palm wine filling the air as they both took a sip. For a moment, they sat in silence, catching up on the news of the village, the children, and the passing of time. "Now, how is business?" she feigned concern. It was an African custom to ask after people's well-being before begging for favors. "Glory to God. With many sleepless nights, I now have over 1,000 retailers I supply when my containers land," thIe spoke with so much pride. His sweat was finally paying off. "Chai. Your ori is good. Was it not just 3 years ago you left our village for Ibadan?" Teo was beyond shocked. Did their pastor not say money takes time? No wonder he looked so good. His glowing skin and protruding stomach were a testament to his newly found wealth. "That's correct. Anything is possible with hard work, my sister. No wife yet, though," he added, laughing. They both roared with laughter. thIe could tell the next subject they would discuss, but it felt good to be in his presence, to talk without the weight of worry pressing down on her shoulders. But Teo couldn't delay her request any longer. Her heart pounded in her chest as she glanced at thIe, hoping he would understand. "thIe," Teo began softly, her voice trembling with emotion. "I need your help. You know how Zara has always been such a bright girl, full of dreams. She has finished her high school education, and I believe she is ready for more. I want her to go to Ibadan and further her studies, but I cannot afford it. The money is too much for me to bear alone." thIe's face softened as he listened, his expression thoughtful. He had always been a man of few words, but when he spoke, it was with wisdom and experience. He leaned back slightly, looking up at the sky as if to gather his thoughts before responding. "I know Zara, Teo," he said slowly. "She is a hard-working girl, and I see the fire in her. She has the potential to be something great. But you also know how things are in the city. It is not easy, and there are many challenges. The world is changing, and we must change with it. But I also know that you have always done what is best for your children." thIe continued, "I will take Zara with me to Ibadan," he said, his voice firm yet compassionate. "I will make sure she has the opportunity to further her education, and I will support her tuition. She deserves the chance to become more, just like you said. But you must remember, Teo, that she is going into a world that will test her. It will not be easy for her, but she will have the chance to prove herself." Tears welled up in Teo's eyes as she reached out to clasp thIe's hand, overwhelmed with gratitude. "Thank you, thIe. You have no idea how much this means to me. Zara will make you proud, I promise. I will make sure she is ready for what comes next. Thank you for giving her this chance." thIe smiled, his weathered face crinkling with kindness. "Go and prepare her, Teo. Tell her that the city awaits her, and it will be her time to shine. But remember, no matter where life takes her, she will always have a family to return to." Teo nodded, her heart swelling with a mixture of relief and hope. This was the first step toward Zara's future, and with thIe's help, she knew her daughter could achieve everything she dreamed of. It was a Christmas gift she would never forget. Zara stood at the edge of her small room, looking at the few belongings she had carefully packed for the journey ahead. The wooden trunk lay open, and inside were her few clothes, a book or two, and a small bundle of hope. A part of her was excited, eager for the opportunity to start something new, to chase the dreams she had held in her heart for so long. But there was also a deep pang of sorrow that tugged at her chest, one that she could not shake. Her mother, Teo, was standing by the door, watching her with a mixture of pride and sadness. Zara could see the effort it took for her mother to keep her composure, but the tears were there, just beneath the surface. It was hard for Teo to let go, to send her only daughter to the city where life would be so different, so uncertain. Are you sure you have everything? thIe asked, her voice thick with emotion as she looked over the things Zara had packed. Do you have your papers? And your shoes? Zara smiled, trying to ease her mother's worries. Yes, Mama, I'm ready. I've packed everything I need. Don't worry. But thIe couldn't help herself. She crossed the room and wrapped her arms around Zara, pulling her close. The two of them stood there for a moment, silent, holding each other tightly as if the world might fall apart if they let go. I'll miss you so much, thIe whispered, her voice trembling. You've always been my strength, Zara. Go and make me proud. But always remember, no matter where you are, you have a home here with me. Zara squeezed her mother back, fighting back the tears that threatened to spill. I will, Mama. I'll make you proud. I'll work hard and become the woman I've always dreamed of being. After a long, quiet moment, Zara stepped back and wiped her eyes. She quickly changed the subject. I'll be back to visit soon, Mama. You'll see me shining in the city. thIe smiled, though her eyes were still glistening with tears. I know you will, my daughter. Now go. With a heavy heart, Zara picked up her bags and walked out of the house, the weight of the world on her shoulders. Her journey to Ibadan had begun. When Zara arrived in the city, the skyline greeted her with towering buildings, crowded streets, and an overwhelming buzz of activity. It was everything she had imagined and more. She had heard stories of how the city was full of opportunity and dreams waiting to be realized, but standing in the middle of it all, she felt small and insignificant. This was not the village. This was a world that demanded you fight for your place, a place where dreams didn't come easily. Uncle Femi's place wasn't what Zara had expected. She had heard him boast about his successful clothing business in Ibadan, but there was no shop filled with neatly stacked piles of clothes waiting to be sold. Instead, they arrived at a dimly lit bar. The sign outside flashed in neon lights, and the sound of laughter and music drifted through the open door. A thick smell of alcohol and smoke hung in the air. Where are we, Uncle? Zara asked, her voice layered with confusion as she looked at her uncle, who was busy greeting customers at the door. Don't worry, Zara, Femi said with a smile, guiding her inside. This is my business now. Things have changed, but don't worry. We will get you settled. I told you about the work at the bar, remember? This is where you'll start. You'll earn enough money to cover your tuition. Zara's stomach dropped. This wasn't what she had imagined. The bar was no place for a young woman like her, but she had little choice. Her dreams of becoming an accountant seemed impossible now. Over the next few weeks, Zara settled into a new routine. She served drinks to the regulars, flashing a polite smile as she carried tray after tray of palm wine, beer, and other alcoholic drinks to the tables. Some of the men were kind, others leered at her, but Zara kept her distance from such men. She knew what this place was, and she had no intention of becoming one of the women who worked in the brothel at the back of the bar. No, she would hold on to her dignity, even if it meant making small sacrifices. Instead, Zara worked diligently at the bar. She served drinks and kept her head down, always doing her best, but deep inside, she still had her sights set on something greater. Every morning, she would offer tutoring to the children who couldn't afford school fees. She had grown up in a family that valued education, and she knew that knowledge was the key to unlocking a better life. In exchange for her lessons, the children gave her 100 naira each day, a small but meaningful contribution to her savings. She spent hours talking with the waitresses at the bar, telling them about her goal of becoming an accountant. They listened, some of them skeptical, others impressed by her ambition. They would often ask her what she planned to do once she saved enough money for school. I'm going to be a brilliant accountant, Zara told them, her voice full of hope. I know it won't be easy, but I'll work hard for it. No one will stop me. The waitresses nodded, some of them exchanging looks. Zara's words resonated with them, and they could see the fire in her eyes. They too had dreams, some of them big, some of them small, but they all understood that the city was a place where dreams could either come alive or be crushed. Despite the difficulties, Zara remained focused. Her work at the bar was hard, and the pressure to fit in with the other girls was constant, but she kept reminding herself that this was only temporary. She would not let this be her life forever. She was determined to rise above it, to make something of herself. Zara's dreams of a better life, of a future where she could wear a suit and sit behind a desk in a bright office, were still alive in her heart. And as she poured drinks for the regulars, her mind wandered to the future, to the day when she would walk into a classroom as a student, not a waitress. That day would come. She just had to keep going. It was a Thursday evening, one of the rare nights when the bar was quiet. Zara was finishing her shift, wiping down the counter as the last set of customers stumbled out, leaving behind the stale air of alcohol and smoke. She had grown accustomed to the environment, the dim lights, the constant hum of conversation, the sounds of glasses clinking, and the music playing softly in the background. It was a world that was so different from the peaceful village she had once known, yet it had become her reality. "Zara, come here. I need to talk to you," Femi said, his voice low and strained. Her heart skipped a beat. She had grown to respect and trust her uncle, even though he was the one who had brought her into this life. She had to admit that she was a little wary of the man who had helped her, but she had convinced herself that he was just doing what he thought was best for her. When she entered the small, dimly lit office, Femi was sitting at his desk, a half-empty bottle of beer in front of him. He motioned for her to sit, his eyes scanning her face with an unreadable expression. "You've been doing well here," Femi said after a moment of silence. "You're hardworking, and I can see that you have a bright future ahead of you. But I think you're ready for something else now." Zara's heart began to race. She wasn't sure what Femi meant, but she couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. She had heard rumors about him, but she refused to believe them until now. "Zara, you're a beautiful girl," Femi continued, his voice softening. "You've grown into a woman, and I think you're ready for more. You don't have to keep working here forever. You can have more. We can have more." Before she could react, Femi stood up, unsteady from the alcohol. He moved closer to her, his hand reaching out to touch her cheek. She flinched, pulling away, but he persisted, his intentions becoming clearer with each movement. "Uncle, please," she stammered, her voice trembling as she tried to push him away. "This is wrong. This isn't what I came here for. I don't want this. Please." But Femi was relentless. His hand tightened around her arm, pulling her closer. "Zara," he whispered, his breath hot with the stench of alcohol. "You've always been mine in a way, you just didn't know it. But now, you'll see. I've been patient long enough." In that moment, Zara felt trapped. There was no escape. Her dreams of becoming an accountant, of building a life for herself, seemed like distant memories, things that had no place in the world she was now trapped in. And as Femi's hands moved over her, her heart shattered. The next morning, Zara woke up with a heaviness she couldn't explain. Her body felt foreign, as if she was no longer in control. She lay there in the small bed in the office, staring at the ceiling, unable to make sense of what had happened. Femi was gone, leaving her to contemplate the events of the previous night. No matter how hard she tried, she couldn't shake the images, the feeling of his hands on her, the words he had whispered in her ear. She felt like a stranger in her own body. Over the following days, things only became more complicated. Femi acted as though nothing had happened, as though he had done her a favor. He spoke to her with the same casual familiarity, but his behavior was twisted. It wasn't love, it was manipulation, control, and a betrayal of everything she had ever trusted. Zara knew it was wrong. She tried to fight it, to distance herself, but Femi was always there. It was as if he had trapped her in a web, and no matter how much she wanted to break free, she couldn't. And so, Zara kept her head down. She continued working at the bar, maintaining the pretense that everything was normal. But inside, she was broken, carrying the weight of her uncle's betrayal and the shattered pieces of her dreams. Every night, she lay awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying the events over and over in her mind. She wondered how she had ended up here, so far from the life she had imagined for herself. But even in the darkness, a small part of her refused to give up. She clung to the hope that one day, she would find a way out. One day, she would reclaim her life, her dreams, and her dignity. Zara vowed to herself that she wouldn't let this be her story forever. She would rise above it, no matter how long it took. Because deep down, she knew she was destined for more. Join me next Time for part 2 of this captivating story. Trust me, you won't want to miss it. Before you go, help me grow this community. Hit that like button for more thrilling content, subscribe for new uploads, comment below with your theories and reactions, share with friends and family who love a good story. I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for being an amazing part of this journey.